Hi everyone, my name is Ashish Agarwal, and I'll be delivering this lecture to you. So before commencing the session, just a quick round of update regarding my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Ashish Agarwal _GG. So if you haven't visited the channel, I would request you to do visit the channel and do like, share, and subscribe the channel. The channel is dedicated to Oracle Golden Gate related videos. Thank you. Hi everyone, welcome to our day 2 training session of learning Oracle Golden Gate Classic Architecture training. This is 30-day learning Golden Gate challenge. My name is Ashish Agarwal, and I'll be delivering this lecture to you. So before commencing the session, just a quick round of update regarding my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Ashish Agarwal _GG. So if you haven't visited the channel, I would request you to do visit the channel and do like, share, and subscribe the channel. The channel is dedicated to Oracle Golden Gate related videos. Thank you. Also, you can visit my website, which is actrancotech.com. So for those who wonder what is Actranco, so it is Agarwal Training and Consulting. So AGTRNCO tech.com too for visiting useful content related to Oracle Golden Gate. Okay. So now let us start the session now. So in today's session, today is day 2 classic architecture. What we are going to discuss, so we are going to discuss about Oracle Golden Gate architecture, how data flow happens, and then we'll discuss about Golden Gate certification matrix. So one point which I mentioned in the previous session was that after completion of one of the session, you will be able to tell whether Golden Gate is supported for this particular database or not. So once we discuss the certification matrix, your point, that particular point will be answered. And then we'll see how to download Golden Gate binaries. Okay. So let us start. So Oracle Golden Gate architecture, classic architecture, how it works. So you have a source database and a target database. Okay. Now each database has its own transaction logs. So Golden Gate has a capture process, which is also called as extract process, which captures the committed transactions by reading the transaction logs. Now remember, the transaction logs contain committed as well as uncommitted transactions. However, Golden Gate covers only Golden Gate captures only committed transactions. Okay. So Golden Gate only captures committed transactions. Now, once the transactions are captured by the extract process, okay, those transactions are written into the local file, local system trail files, which are called as local trail files. Once the data is available into the local trail file, data pump process reads the data from local trail, send it over TCP/IP network, and writes it to the remote trail file. Okay. Now, once the data is available into the remote trail file, the delivery process, which is also called as the replicate process, it applies the data to the target database. Okay. Now in Golden Gate, if you see here, there are three processes involved: capture, which is also called as extract, data pump process, and delivery, which is also called as the replicate process. So as the session goes on, and by end of this session, you will have the terminology developed wherein you will refer capture as extract, data pump as data pump, and delivery as the replicate process. Okay, so extract, pump, and replicate. This terminology you will develop as the session moves on. But for now, so what happens is you have a source database and the target database. Each database has its own transaction logs, which contains committed as well as uncommitted transactions. Now you configure Golden Gate extract process, which reads the data from the transaction logs and captures those transactions. Upon capturing those transactions, it writes them to the trail file on local machine. So basically, once the transactions are captured, they are stored on the local machine. Okay, they are stored on the local machine. So trail files reside on the operating system. They consume your operating system disk space. So the extract process captures the data, writes to the local trail. So writes to the trail file. Now these trail files are binary format files. Okay. So trail files residing on the source machine are called as local trail files. The trail files residing on the source machine, the trail files which resides on the same machine as the source database are called as local trail file. Now, once the data is available into the local trail file, the Golden Gate data pump process. So pump process is to pump the data from source to target. The data pump process, it distributes the data from source to the target. So what pump process does is, as soon as the data gets returned into the local trail, it will read the data from the local trail, send it over TCP IP network, and writes it to the trail file on target. Now, the trail file residing on the source system is called as local trail. However, the trail file residing on the target machine is called as the remote trail file. So the pump process reads the data from the local trail, sends it over TCP IP network, and writes it to the remote trail file. Once the data is available into the remote trail file on the target machine, the replicate process reads the data from the remote trail and apply it to target database. Okay, so these are the three processes involved in Golden Gate replication: capture, pump, and delivery. So capture is also called as extract. Delivery is also called as the replicate process. Okay, so these are the three processes which are responsible for the Golden Gate data flow. So Golden Gate also supports bidirectional as well. So bidirectional means is both the sides would be live. So basically in bidirectional, what happens is the transaction can come to any of the sides. The application will be connected to both the sides. Once the application is connected, the transactions will be replicated to other side using Oracle GoldenGate. The transactions will be replicated to other site using Oracle GoldenGate. So basically, in bidirectional, what will happen? The application will be connected to site A here. Whatever transaction happens over here, they will be replicated to site B. Same way, the application will also be connected to site B. Whatever transactions happens on site B, they will be replicated to site A using Oracle GoldenGate. So on site B, the extract process will read the data from the transaction logs. Once the data is available into the transaction logs, you will be configuring the Golden Gate extract process, which reads the data from the transaction logs of site B, writes it to the local trail file on site B. Once the data is available into the local trail file on side B, the data pump process reads the data from the local trail, sends it over trail file and writes it to remote trail file on site A. Once the data is available into the remote trail file, the replicate process on site A will read the data from the remote trail and apply the data to the target database. So if you see here, you have same kind of processes running on both the sides, but they are completely independent. So the extract process running on site A is independent of this extract process is independent of this particular extract process. Same with this pump process is independent of this pump process. This replicate process is independent of this particular replicate process. So all these processes are independent of each other. One more thing here, you have to, if you have to understand about the independency, each process is independent here. Extract process is independent of pump. Pump process is independent of replicate. It means that pump process can run even if your extract or replicate is down. Extract can run even if pump or replicate is down. The replicate can run even if pump and extract is down as well. Okay. So still they can run without any concern because they are all these processes are independent of each other. All these processes are independent of each other. So whatever process you see over here, they are independent of each other. So again, I repeat, this architecture is very important, guys. I always emphasize on this architecture a lot. The reason is, if you have to set up Golden Gate, if you have to manage Golden Gate, if you have to troubleshoot Golden Gate, everything will be done from this architecture. Nothing will go out of these architecture at all. Okay. So now let us see. So you have a source database. The extract process will read the transactions from the transaction logs, will capture only committed transaction. Now, this is very important. The extract process, remember, captures only the committed transactions. It does not capture any uncommitted transactions. Okay. Now, once the data is available into the the transaction log, the extract process will capture it, write it to the trail file on local machine, which are called as local trail file. Once the data is available into the local trail file, the pump process reads the data from the local trail, sends it over TCP/IP network, and writes it to the remote trail file. Once the data is available into the remote trail file, the replicate process applies it to target database. Okay. Now remember, guys, one thing. The pump process here, what you see, the pump process here does not transfer the trail file over the TCP/IP network. Pump process transfers the data from source to the target. So from local trail to remote trail, it's the from local trail to remote trail, it's the data which gets transferred. So pump process doesn't transfer the trail file, it transfers the data which is returned into the trail file over TCP/IP network and writes it to the remote trail file. Okay, one more thing if you will notice over here. Each process over here has a source to read from and a target to write, right? So what is the source of this extract process? The source of this extract process is transaction logs of the database. What is the target? The target is local trail. What is the source of this pump process? The source of this pump process is local trail. The target is remote trail on target database. What is the source of this replicate process? The source of this replicate process is remote trail and target is target database. So each process in GoldenGate has a source to read from and a target to write to. Okay. So the extract process reads the data, writes to local trail. Pump process reads the data from local trail, send it over TCP/IP network and writes it to remote trail. And then the replicate process applies the data by reading the data from remote trail to the target database. Okay. In bidirectional, both sides are live. So whatever process you have followed from site A to site B, in the same way, site B to site A process will be followed as well. Okay. So here, if you see in GoldenGate, these are the three processes responsible for GoldenGate replication: extract, pump, and replicate. Now, guys, this architecture is really very important. You must be seeing right now, I'm emphasizing a lot on this architecture and repeating same thing again and again. The reason being is this architecture will form the base for you. This architecture will ensure that, like, I'll tell you, when I started my career in Oracle database. I started my career in Oracle database at 9i. At that time, the teacher who was teaching me, she told me that if you have understood this architecture of Oracle database, you have learned 70% of database. And to that, I somewhat agree, but not 100% agree to that point. The reason is Oracle database architecture is so vast that the basic architecture which we were learning, yes, that helps, but you have learned 70% of database. I don't agree. However, with respect to GoldenGate, I can say that if you have learned this architecture, understood this architecture, you have understood 70% of GoldenGate. You can set up GoldenGate using this architecture. You can manage GoldenGate. You can design. You can troubleshoot any issue if you know this architecture. So this architecture is really very important and simple as well. There is nothing else in the architecture which you should be knowing about. Okay. Three processes: extract, pump, replicate. Then you have trail files, local trail, and remote trail. So who writes data to local trail? It's the extract process which writes data to the local trail. And who reads data from the remote trail? It's the replicate process which reads the data from the remote trail. Okay. So this is the overall architecture of your Oracle GoldenGate. Okay, this is overall architecture of Oracle GoldenGate. Okay, now Now, in the previous session, we discussed about there are two types of architectures, right? Sorry, in the previous session, we discussed about there were two types of extract processes. Does anyone recall what are two types of extract processes? If yes, type in the chat window. So, two types of extract processes are, yes, correct, integrated and classic extract, right? Now, what is the difference between integrated and classic extract? So, in case of classic extract, what happens is the extract process directly reads the transaction logs of the database. There is no layer in between. The extract process directly establishes connectivity with the source database, fetches the data or captures the data and writes it to local trail. However, this integrated extract. Now, in case of integrated extract, what happens is each database has its own transaction logs. So the copy of those changes gets written into the log miner database. And then log miner passes on the required changes in form of LCRs to the extract process. So LCR stands for logical change records. So what happens is here the extract process was connecting to the database and capturing the transactions. However, here, whatever data is required by the extract process, the log miner is doing that task for you. So the copy of this is log miner, which is log miner database, which is concept of Oracle database, right? So log miner database is internal to the Oracle. So what happens is whatever changes are getting returned into the archive logs, those changes gets returned into the log miner database. And And once the changes are returned into the log miner passes on the changes to the extract process in form of LCRs. Okay. Once extract process receives the changes from log miner, then it writes to the local trail, which data pump reads, send it over TCP/IP network. So in case of integrated extract, there is one more layer in between, which is log miner. If you see this classic extract, there was no layer. The extract process was directly reading the data from the source database transaction logs. However, here between the transaction logs and extract process, there is one more layer of log miner, right? But still, now logically, if you see the performance of, as a layman, the performance of the extract process should be if I have to ask you one question, out of integrated extract and classic extract, which extract performance should be better? Integrated or classic? As a layman, which one do you think would be better?
Integrated.
Class.
Now I'll tell you, performance of integrated extract is much faster or much better than the classic extract. But as a layman, if you see, there is a layer in between of extract and redo logs. However, in case of classic, there is no layer in between. So how come it is possible that the performance of integrated extract is better than the classic extract? How come is that possible? So in case of classic extract, the extract process is directly establishing connectivity with the database and extracting the data or capturing the data. However, here you have log miner utility in between. You have one more layer in between of the extract process and the source database. But still, it is able to capture the transaction and the performance is much better than the classic extract. Then how come it is possible? Anyone would like to answer this? Why do you think it is possible? So Shiva Kumar is saying that LCR shares the change data to the extract. Log miner is internal to the database. Log miner will filter transaction. Absolutely. This is correct. So in case of, see, what is happening is, I'll give you one example of it. Okay. Let me open one notepad. So what happens is, in your transaction logs, you have got multiple schema transactions. Even system transactions are there. So in the extract process, say for example, we are saying capture the data of department 11 and employee 11 table. So the extract process will fetch the transactions only related to department 11 and EMP 11. However, your redo logs or the transaction logs, I should say, they would contain transactions from multiple schemas, multiple tables. So say for example, there are 1,000 sys transactions. Then there are 10,000 system transactions. After that, there are 50,000 sys transactions again. Then there is one transaction related to DPT11. Then again, there are 100,000 system transactions, 1 million sys transactions. After that, there is another employee 11 transaction. So the extract process will fetch this transaction and this particular transaction. But what happens is the extract process reads the transaction logs in sequential manner. So what it will do is it will read this 1,000 sys transaction, the classic extract, and see if it requires to capture it as per the parameter file. No, then it will check this. It doesn't have to capture this. It doesn't have to capture either this. After that, it will capture one transaction related to it. Now again, it will move forward in sequential manner. It will read these transactions before capturing this. So the extract process is doing that filtering on its own, right? However, in case of integrated extract, what happens is whatever filtration is required, log miner is doing it. And remember, log miner is internal to the database. Now, because log miner is internal to the database, that is why the performance of integrated extract is much faster in comparison to classic extract. Okay. Now, one more thing to add point to that. In case of integrated extract, there are, if you see in the database, one integrated extract creates 4 connection to the database. Okay. So internally, what it does is it creates a reader process. Reader process reads the transaction logs. Preparer prepares it. Builds it, and then capture process captures it. So internally, there are 4 processes. So for you, this is just for your information, what I'm telling you. You won't be using it anywhere. But this is just for your information that the integrated extract contains multiple internal processes, which makes it again faster to run. That is another reason your integrated extract is much faster. So when you create an integrated extract establishes the connectivity. So integrated extract basically starts, it establishes the connectivity. So in that case, what happens is like it creates 4 processes. Now there is a question how logminer knows which data to filter. And if we do not have any link with extract parameters though, you will understand it once we start the configuration. We haven't done that configuration yet. So don't worry guys. I see a lot of questions which subsequently will be answered for you as the session goes on. Okay. So internally there are 4 processes which are created. But again, as I mentioned, when you do practically, you just create the extract process, integrated extract. You don't create these processes. Internally, they will create on its own. Okay. Now, let us now discuss about installation of Oracle GoldenGate. Okay. Now we have our own virtual boxes. Okay. So the next topic which we are discussing right now is how to install Oracle GoldenGate. Okay. Now for installation of GoldenGate, it contains two parts. First is download and second is installation because you need to download the software, GoldenGate software, right? So it involves download of binaries. Now, download of binaries, first of all, requires checking the certification matrix and then downloading the binaries. And then next is installation of GoldenGate software. Okay. So our in our virtual boxes which we have, these virtual boxes which you have, okay. So let me open the terminal. So the virtual boxes which you have on these machines, so they have Enterprise Linux 7 for classic architecture training. They have Enterprise Linux 7, okay, and they have database version 19c. They have database version 19c on this particular server. Okay, okay. So now, and it's Oracle database. So now the thing is, we need to install GoldenGate with this. We need to install GoldenGate for this particular environment. So before you can proceed with the installation, there are certain things which you need to keep in mind. What are those? Let us see. So before you can proceed with the installation of Oracle GoldenGate, you need to download the software. And which software to download? There are multiple versions available. So which software to download? Let us see. So before you can proceed to download the software, it is very important for you to check the certification metrics. Before you can proceed to download the software, you need to check the certification metrics in your environment. So to check the certification metrics, you need to know few things like what is the platform you have and what is the database type and version you are going to use. Okay. So the platform which we have is Enterprise Linux 7. Okay. Database is Oracle 19c. So you need to note down source as well as target. So with GoldenGate, you can have different source and different target as well. In our case, we have same on both. So in our case, we have same on both the sides. Like platform is Enterprise Linux 7 and database is Oracle 19c. Okay. So now what you need to do is before you can download the software, guys, like I'll tell you why we do this activity is certification metrics. When you are working not only on GoldenGate, whenever you are working on any software in this industry, you should always ensure to check certification metrics. See, as a when we work as a GoldenGate consultant or GoldenGate expert, like it's okay, like when you download it later on and later on you come to know that it is not compatible. Our motto should always be to be right first time. Okay. And if you are, I have seen people like, I'll give you one scenario, very senior person. What he did was he tried to set up GoldenGate in his environment. Okay. And he was a new hire. So client asked him to download the software. So what he did was he downloaded the wrong binaries. He chose the wrong platform and downloaded the binary and installed it. But upon installing, it gave them the error. So what he did is he raised an SR with Oracle, and Oracle said that check the certification metrics. The version which you have downloaded is not certified with your platform. You need to download the different binary. So the thing is, it's okay, but it wasted 2 days for them. It didn't put, because it was a basic thing, it didn't put good face of the person in front of his client. So I always want you guys to be right first time, so that you are not doing the basic mistakes. Okay. So now which version you have to download? Then the next question is, which version you should be downloading in your environment. So the version which you should be downloading in your environment, I always say one thing, that always go with the latest supported version. Always go with the latest supported version. So you need to check the certification matrix of the latest version and see whether it is certified to be used with your platform and your database. If it is, then go with that particular Golden Gate version. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to check the certification matrix. Okay, so to
So
check the
Ashish,
go to
can
Google,
I
go to Google and type Fusion Middleware Certification Matrix. Okay, select the first option. Okay, now on this, so Oracle Golden Gate is a Fusion middleware product. Now on this, you will find Golden Gate certification here. Click on this link. Okay, so here you can find GoldenGate 23 AI binaries, sorry, certification matrix, 21C certification matrix, 19C certification matrix, 23C very data certification matrix, 12C very data certification matrix. Right? So what you need to do is check 21C, because 23 AI is microservices. So we are not going to use this, because this training, what we are doing is on classic architecture. So we need to check 21C certification matrix. So open this certification matrix. Basically, download and open this. Once you open this certification matrix, now you can find, now if you remember yesterday I mentioned that after completion of couple of days say training, or maybe 3 days training, so it's 2 days, after today only you can tell whether the database you are mentioning, it is supported or not. Like if no SQL is supported by Golden Gate, or Informix is supported by Golden Gate, or SQL Server is supported by Golden Gate, you will get the answer from here. So you are checking 21C certification binaries. So first of all, to check what all databases it supports, you can check the, so first of all, let us enable the editing here. Okay. So here you can see Golden Gate 21C supports these many databases like DB2, HP Nonstop databases, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, SQL Server, Teradata, and Tungsten database. So 21C Golden Gate supports these many databases. Now the question is, does Golden Gate not support Informix database? The answer is Golden Gate 21C does not support Informix database. Check the previous versions or future version, like maybe check 23 AI and see if Informix is supported or not. If 23 or 21C doesn't support, then check 19C, 12C, 11G certification matrix. If none of them say so, that means that particular database is not supported. Okay, by Golden Gate. But yeah, Golden Gate 21C supports these many databases. Okay. So we are going to check for Oracle database. I'll select, unselect all. I'm checking whether our platform and database is supported or not with 21C. If 21C doesn't show that it is supported, then we'll go to 19C certification matrix, then 18C, then 12C, then 11G. Okay. So now here I'll go to data store name, not data store. Where do we get Enterprise Linux? Here. So the OS version we'll select here. Ours is Enterprise Linux 7. So if you see here, Golden Gate version this supports Linux platform. It supports Enterprise Linux 7, RHEL. 7. And it supports Oracle database, right? So basically 21C will be supported in our particular environment. So for our virtual boxes, we can go ahead and choose 21C without any concerns. Okay. So now what we are going to do is, once we have identified that 21C is supported, so next is what we are going to do. We are going to download the binaries related to 21C classic architecture. Okay. So the next option is download 21C GoldenGate binaries, because we have seen that. Now the question comes, suppose Ashish, 21C wasn't supported. What we would have done? Then we would have checked 19C GoldenGate certification binary to see whether this platform which we are using, the database which we are using, is supported by 19C. If again that is also not supported, then we'll go to 18C, then to 12C, then 11G certification matrix. Okay. So in our case, like RHEL 7 is supported by 21C, Oracle database is supported by 21C, Linux x86 64 is supported by 21C. So what we are going to do now is we are going to go ahead and download the 21C binaries. So there are two ways to download the binaries now. What are those two ways? So the two ways are, either you can go to edelivery.oracle.com, or you can go to Google and type download Oracle GoldenGate binaries. 21C. Go to Oracle GoldenGate downloads. Let me check in the meanwhile the chat questions. So it says, do we need to check database version 12C, 19C? Okay, this question will be answered for you later on. But the thing is, GoldenGate 21C supports database 11G, 12C, 18C, 19C, as well as 21C. So you don't need to check that. So one thing that if I have to tell you is, GoldenGate supports the version. Say for example, you're downloading GoldenGate 21C. So it will support all Oracle database, including 21C or below. 23A it won't support, but 21C or below database would be supported by it. Okay. What if source and target are not on same OS platform on database version? What you need to do is you need to download two different binaries. Two set of binaries you need to download and put on the systems. Okay. Okay. So now so these are 23 AI binaries. We'll check 21C binary. Okay. Now you see here, these are 21C binaries. Because we are going to go ahead with classic, so that's why. So 21C binaries are there. Now remember one thing, until 21C, from 12.3 to 21C GoldenGate, both classic architecture and microservices coexist. So in that case, what happened was, basically, you can either use classic architecture or microservices architecture as per your requirement. It's up to you. Okay. So you have two separate binaries. One for until 21C I'm talking about. So until 21C, whatever says microservices, that means it's microservices binaries. And the one which doesn't say anything, that means it is a classic architecture binaries. So from 23 AI, it doesn't say microservices anymore, because there are only one type of binary now for microservices. Okay. So for 21C, you have classic architecture binaries separate, and you have separate microservices architecture binaries. So the one which states microservices, that means it's microservices binary, and then the one which states nothing, that means it's a classic architecture binaries. Okay. Now, another thing, if you see, the binaries are different for different databases and different platform as well. So this particular binary will only work for Oracle database on Linux. It won't work for Oracle on Sun Solaris, or it won't work for SQL Server on Linux. It won't work. So this only binary will work for Oracle on Linux, and it is classic architecture binary. This particular binary is microservices, and it is again for Oracle on Linux. Then this is for Oracle on Windows. This is for DB2 for I on Linux x64. This is microservices binary. So you see here, each database, these are binaries supported for Postgres. Okay. Now, suppose if you want older binaries, or if you don't find the binary which you're looking for listed over here, you can go to edelivery.oracle.com, sign in, and over there, you can find your. So go to. So we are signing into edelivery.oracle.com, and here you can find older binaries as well. So you can search here Oracle GoldenGate. So here you will see 23.4, 21.3, 21.1. If you select 21.3, for example, so here you have different options available. Go to view items. So here you can find for which platform you want to download. So Linux x86, x64. We don't want for this. Then click on continue. It will download the software for you. Or you can download from OTM here. Okay, so if you want to download from here, just click on it. So we are going to download this 21.3 for Oracle on Linux x86, x64. I reviewed this. Download. So the software will be downloaded. Once the software is downloaded, say download is happening. Once the software is downloaded, then you can transfer these binaries to the local machines, the machines where you need to set up GoldenGate. Okay. So in our case, these virtual boxes comes loaded with the binaries. Okay. So you can check the location of binaries is the location of binary is /home /Oracle softwares. So here you will find all the binaries related to classic architecture, microservices. So if you see here, classic architecture 19C is there, 21C, microservices, classic 19C, Veridata, 12.2, 12.2.1.2. These binaries are there. For microservices 23AI and Veridata 23C, there are separate virtual boxes. Okay. So you see these softwares are here. So we are going to use these binaries, whatever binaries are present over here. So what you can do, you can download the binaries as you have already done. And after downloading the binary, you can transfer them on your machine. So the virtual boxes, if you're using training provided virtual box, so you don't have to worry. The binaries are already present in the location /home /Oracle /software. Okay. Okay. Now I'll take questions. So what if source and target are not on same OS platform and DB versions? You will have to download separate binaries for both source and target. Now, there is a question from Avani, like, can you explain other columns of, please explain other columns in certification matrix. So other columns are like comments. If you open, I generally check whether it is certified or not, but what are other columns? Like product family, license type. So these are different things. We don't need to worry about those. OS update type, update level. So to be honest, like I don't look into it. My primary look is what I look into primarily what I look into is database type. I look into database type, platform, and version. That's it. Nothing else I look into. If that is supported, because once you have this information, then you can identify whether Golden Gate is supported in your environment or Not. Okay. So once the Golden Gate you downloaded, once you have identified which Golden Gate you need to support, which once you have identified which Golden Gate version you are required to download, then download that software from the OTN and you are good. Okay. So after downloading the software, the next step is installing the Golden Gate. Before we install Golden Gate, now there are certain considerations which you need to keep in mind. Like you cannot directly install GoldenGate. Yes, you can, but when you are working in production, it is very important for you to understand there are certain considerations which you need to keep in mind. What are those considerations? Let us discuss about that. So before proceeding with installation, you need to define which location you are going to install GoldenGate. You may install GoldenGate in a separate mount point, like you can create a separate mount point like slash GoldenGate, or you can install GoldenGate in an existing mount point like slash U01 or slash data, right? So you need to decide where you need to install GoldenGate. Once you have identified where you need to install GoldenGate, then either you create a separate mount point and assign a space to it. Or if you are creating any existing mount point, then you should consider adding extra space to it. Okay. Now, to consider how much space you need for installation of GoldenGate, you need to understand the requirement. You need to do research and design. Okay. So, how much space is the space calculation criteria we are going to discuss subsequently. Now, the thing is, why I'm telling you all this? The question comes is, Ashish, we'll get the server, right? Why do we need all this information? See, the thing is, the whole purpose of this training is to make you Golden Gate expert and Golden Gate technical architect. You are whole and soul responsible for Golden Gate solution in your environment, starting from designing, maintaining, managing, setup. Right now, it happens with me. That's why I'm discussing this. Like when I work as a Golden Gate consultant, right? So what are the expectations from my end is like I should provide in and out, like what are the hardware requirement? Like when the server build is happening, they ask us what is the hardware requirement. So the hardware requirement relate for Golden Gate is first of all CPU part. So 4 or 8 core CPU is sufficient for Golden Gate. More you get, better it is, of course, but 4 or 8 core CPU is sufficient. For the space requirement, now one thing which you had mentioned, one thing which we discussed earlier is how much space we need for installation. So for that, you need to perform space requirement calculation. Okay. How do you do the space calculation? Now, each person has its own way to calculate the space requirement. Like I may have a separate calculation criteria. You may have a separate calculation criteria. Third person may have a separate calculation criteria, right? So everyone has their own space calculation methods. No one is wrong. Okay, everyone has their own method to calculate, and everyone is right. I'll tell you what I follow in my case. What I do follow. How do I calculate the space? So to calculate the space, what I do myself is I take out last 30 to 60 days day wise archive log generation. Okay. So last 30 to 60 days, I get the data for day wise archive log generation. Okay. So one day it may be 20 GB, another day it could be 1 GB, another day it could be 100 MB, the very next day it could be 100 GB, right? So for last 30 or 60 days, I take out archive log generation. After that, what I do is in last 30 or 60 days, I identify 7 highest archive log generation days. I identify seven highest archive log generation days and take average of that. Okay. So suppose the maximum archive generation on one day was 20 GB, then 1 GB, then 100 MB. I take average of this. Okay. Suppose the average of 7 days highest archive log generation comes out to be 25 GB. Now what I do is I multiply it by number of days that trails. You remember in the architecture we discussed about the. Okay. So now what we are doing right now here is, so we take average of seven highest archive log generation days. So suppose the average comes out to be 25 days, 25 GB. The average comes out to be 25 GB. Now what I do is I multiply it by number of days customer needs to keep the trail files. So just like archive logs at the database level, you have a purging policy, you keep it for 7 days or 15 days. Same way you define the purging policy for trail files. So suppose you want to keep the trail files for 7 days. So what I do is the average what we have got, I multiply it by number of days we need to keep the trail files for. So 25 GB multiplied by 7, we get 175 GB. Now I multiply it by 2 to 5 times. So I get 350 to 900 GB as a calculation. So what I do is I request for 900 GB of space. Okay, I request for this much space. See, we have to ensure that we are doing future planning as well for future purpose because the data is going to grow and we have to ensure that. So initially, if you request, it is easy to get what you are asking, but later on, same things get difficult. So if they ask you for the calculation, you have the calculation criteria what you follow, right? You are doing the future analysis. So I request for this much space. Okay. Then another thing, apart from CPU requirement and space requirement, next thing what you need to keep in mind is which user you are going to use to install GoldenGate. Which OS user you will be using to install GoldenGate. Whether it would be Oracle user which you would be using or any other user like GG admin or GG user. Right. So if DBAs are going to manage GoldenGate in your environment, then you will use Oracle user. If you have a separate GoldenGate team in your environment, if GoldenGate and DBA responsibilities are segregated, then use GG user and GG admin and ensure that that particular user is part of the O install so that it can read the logs. Okay. So these are the installation considerations you need to keep. I again repeat, installation of Oracle GoldenGate include two parts: download of binaries, which in turn include certification metrics and download, and second is installation of GoldenGate software. Before proceeding with installation, you need to define location where you need to install. It may be a separate mount point or existing mount point. Then you need to consider how much space you need. Understand the requirement. You need to ensure that number of CPUs for GoldenGate is 4 or 8 core. For space requirement, you can follow your own calculation. I told you about how I calculate the space. Okay. And also, you need to ensure or identify which OS user you are going to install Oracle GoldenGate with in your environment. If you are using if you are DBA and GoldenGate, use Oracle. However, if GoldenGate and DBA responsibilities are segregated, then use GG user or GG admin, which should be part of O install. Okay. So these are the installation considerations which you need to keep in mind. Let me see. I see there are questions in the chat window. Let me take those questions first. So GoldenGate is a replication solution from Oracle. Can it be used for DB migration from one database to another type? Yes, you can use GoldenGate for initial load. You can use for GoldenGate for migrating as well, migration purpose as well. What is the major difference between classic and integrated extract? So the major difference between classic and integrated extract is integrated extract creates log miner. Classic extract doesn't create log miner. It is external to the database. However, integrated extract receives the changes from log miner database. Okay. Now Does our Oracle account need to have download privileges for GoldenGate software in order to get the binaries? So if you are trying to download from support OTN, then yes, you need to have Oracle account over there and have the necessary permission to download. However, if you are using training provided VM, you don't have to worry. The softwares are already present. How to identify extract as classic or integrated? We haven't created any type of extract yet. So Neeraj, I would suggest hold on to your query for few sessions. All these questions will be automatically answered for you. Okay. At the starting, I there were few questions like give us some example related to Golden Gate bi-directional, or there were a few other questions. Guys, don't worry. As the session today we are only into the second session. Try to grab the flavor whatever we are discussing. Don't worry. As the session goes on, most of your questions will be answered automatically. Okay. Now, there is a question, another question, which is Rajat has a question. What are the different packages it need to be installed prior to installing Golden Gate? So all the packages are present in this uh, these virtual boxes. You don't need to download anything. You don't need to download any other package. For Golden Gate, it's the same package as database. Okay. Now there is one question from Jenna. Do I need to install Golden Gate in the same server that we have the Oracle database? So, Jenner, again, I would request you to hold on to your question for two sessions. Like we have a topic, different options to install Oracle Golden Gate or deciding where we have to install Golden Gate. This question will be answered for you. Okay. Now, Ramu has a question. What about Golden Gate certification? So, Golden Gate certification basically there are new certifications which have been launched. So for Golden Gate certification, it is classic architecture, microservices, and Veridata. It's combination of all three. So once you have knowledge on all three, you will be able to clear Golden Gate certification. Okay. Is integrated extract available with Oracle or other heterogeneous databases? So integrated extract because it involves a log miner, and log miner is concept of Oracle. So it is only available with Oracle database. Okay. Now there is one more question, which is does logminer keeps the filtered data in some area, or it is just read the data from archive log? So logminer is exact copy of your redo log. So whatever data is there in the logs, logminer is exact copy. Logminer then passes on the changes whatever is required by the extract process. Because there are four processes which runs there. Okay. Yes, you will get all the things. Okay. So these are the topics which we wanted to cover in day two. So I'll take all the questions if you want to ask. But prior to that, let me do the recap and next session, and then I'll take all your questions. So if I have to quickly recap what we discussed in today's session, let me open a recap. Thank you. Yes, Silvani, I see your hand raised.
Hey, sorry to take you back. I just want to you to break down the space calculation for GG one last time.
Sorry, there is a lot of echo, Silvani. There's a lot of echo, Silvani. Sorry, I didn't understand. Okay, we can discuss later on. If you have any question, just ping me separately. Okay, guys. So let us wrap up our session for today. And anyone has any question, you can reach out to me. If you have any question, like if you can visit my website, which is trancotech.com. You can, if you want to discuss with me anything, you can fill out this inquiry form as well. I'm pasting in the chat window. And this is my WhatsApp number as well. Okay. Okay, guys, let us wrap up our session for today and we'll continue in the next session. And just for information, we have also have a 23i session starting this weekend for the people who have already completed classic architecture in previous batches. Or if you want to join 23i. So we have 23i batch also starting this weekend. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you, Ashish.